It is Wednesday, my dudes, which means it is time for another First Thoughts and Initial Impressions video. This one is on Dominiel. This video is releasing a little bit later than I normally release these. That's due to some construction that is near my office where I record these things. So sorry if it didn't come out a couple of hours sooner like you probably were expecting. As with all of my First Thoughts and Initial Impressions videos, I'll be giving you my 2 cents on the character, try to talk about possible artifacts as well as equipment builds that I would probably play on them. Do I think they're pretty good? Do I think they're bad? Basically, where do I think they're going to end up actually being used? And as always, with the introduction out of the way, let's take a look at the really awesome S3.
What do you want? Silk clothes made by a fairy? Maybe a coral accessory from the underwater palace. If that's not it, are you here for my liver? Let me see how lucky you really are. You weren't that bad. Why don't you try harder?
Alright, so Moon Bunny Dominiel, as well as all versions of Dominiel in the English dub of Epic 7, are voiced by Didi Magno Hall, who you may recognize as the voice of Pearl from Steven Universe. Taking a look at Moon Bunny Dominiel's stats, she is a light soul weaver of the Taurus zodiac symbol. She shares a stat line with Sinful Angelica. She has 649 attack, 4,572 health, 114 speed, 631 defense, 15% critical hit chance, 150% critical hit damage, 5% dual attack chance, no starting effectiveness, and 30% starting effect resistance. It says 50% on your screen, but that is a byproduct of her S2 passive, and we'll talk more about that in the next section. Very good starting effect resistance, pretty good starting defense, very high speed for a Soul Weaver. I believe Taurus is the fastest zodiac symbol when it comes to speed for Soul Weavers. Everything else is either standard or pretty garbage. Speaking of garbage, her imprint release is attack percentage for the team, and the imprint concentration is health. I really wish that this character had effect resistance as her imprint concentration. The imprint release, I could kind of excuse. Sinful Angelica's imprint release is very, very good. This is obviously going to be worse because it's less for the whole team. So if you wanted her to have PvE applications, she's going to end up being worse than Sinful Angelica in that department. And again, one of the best parts about Sinful Angelica is the imprint concentration. Because she is a 4-star, it's really, really easy for her to get that imprint concentration as a triple S for all players, especially free-to-play players. And it makes gearing her for high effect resistance a breeze because you basically are starting at like almost 80% or more effect resistance with that imprint concentration. So getting that 200 ER bar that most people so desperately are seeking for their Soul Weavers is really easy on this stat line when you have that imprint concentration. Because they gave her health percentages the imprint concentration, it is a lot worse in my opinion. I think the fact that her kit is got ER already built into it and she's already a Soul Weaver means that I naturally want to have high ER in this character, especially if they are someone that is providing buffs to the team. So if I wanted that option, this is a lot worse. So that's one thing I really don't like about it. 14% health is not exactly some like insane amount when you consider she only has 4,500 base health. So give me the effect resistance because it's such a hungry stat. If I want effect resistance at all, then I'm going to need an absolute boatload of it. So, yeah. Moving on to her actual skills here, we're going to look at the S2, which is her passive. First, it is called Flow Control. It passively increases the effect resistance of Dominiel by 20%. At the start of an enemy's extra turn, it grants immunity and a barrier to all allies for 2 turns. Barrier strength increases proportional to the caster's max health. Immunity and barrier effects can only be activated once every 2 turns and only activates when the enemy is a hero. So there's a couple of problems I have with this skill. Overall, I do think it's a really strong skill. We've needed something that punishes extra turns for a very long time. If you've watched a lot of my how to play videos, you already know how much I complain about extra turns on soul burns. They are pretty much the best things in the entire game. Many of the most debilitating heroes in the game, like Conquer Lilius, Ran, and Peyra, are all characters that have extra turns baked into their kits. Top tier DPSs like Hua Young and Spectre Tenebria have really strong extra turn soul burns. So We've needed a character like this for a very long time. And they basically gave us a Soul Weaver that is very reminiscent of Blood Moon Haste. You're going to see me compare her a lot to Blood Moon Haste in this video because they kind of have similar roles. They just have a passive that is designed to punish a mechanic, and they punish it really hard. Even a character like Rowana is the same kind of character. They punish a mechanic, and they punish it really, really hard. My biggest issue with Dominiel is that I don't know if this punishes extra turns hard enough. So let's just break it down. First off, we get 2 turns of immunity and a 2-turn barrier, right? 2 turns of immunity is usually very good. Most of the strips in the game reduce the turn count of things by 1 turn. So having 2-turn immunity usually lets you sidestep that. The problem is 2 of the extra turn characters that you would expect to punish with this passive, Ran and Pera, they kind of just nullify this entirely. Like if you get hit by a Pera S2, you're going to be unbuffable and restricted, so you don't get any value out of the immunity or the barrier whatsoever on the extra turn. So that's a complete fail. You will get it in the case of Ran, but then his S3 will actually just bypass it all anyway and strip it. You'll mitigate some of the damage from the S3, right? Because you'll have the barrier, but that's still like a drop in the bucket. It doesn't really solve the issue. Like it doesn't save you from the Ran cleave, right? And even then, if he has a book on his team, he could just soul burn it and you're still just screwed anyway. So it doesn't really do a whole heck of a lot. What I would have liked to have is a 1-turn immunity that was, unable to be dispelled, but perhaps that's probably asking for too much. The barrier is another thing that is a bit of concern for me, because in the video, the barrier they show is your like standard Fallen Cecilia barrier. And don't get me wrong, that's a good barrier by average metrics, right? By a standard battles metrics. But if you've ever played with Blood Moon Haste, you know that that barrier is massive, and it is such a detriment to the enemy when it actually triggers. So like Blood Moon Haste is like saying every time you trigger a revive, I double the HP of my characters, which is super, super difficult for your opponent to win. So if the barrier was like absolutely massive, like 50% of everyone's health on your team, that would just be like such a deterrent from anyone trying to ever use an extra turn effect. So I need to see the multipliers on the barrier, because from the video, it just seems okay, not great. If the barrier is like 100% of Dominiel's max health, then yeah, pump it up. It's probably going to be an insane character. And a lot of things I think for this character, how good I think they're going to end up being at the end of the day, hinges very much on this S2 flow control. I probably should have talked about it last, but it is the first one that we talk about in the video. They show in the video. So it's pretty much going to be the highlight, the focal point of this character. So yeah, again, barriers, everything is really going to depend on that, because you also have this can only be activated once every 2 turns clause on the move. Blood Moon Haste and Rowana, their passives are continuous. They will always trigger every single time we actually trigger the condition. Because of how prevalent extra turns are, compared to, say, revives, which only a niche subset of characters have, it's kind of not as good, right? I wish that even though this is a more prevalent condition, it still punished harder than it actually did. I do think that this character will be good just based on this passive, but how good remains to be seen. Like I don't think this is going to be like a situation with Bad Cat Armin, where I thought I was going to be pretty good with Bad Cat Armin and it saw no play. Somebody somewhere can take advantage of this character. Just because of the nature of the fact that it's a character like Blood Moon Haste, like Rowana. So somebody somewhere will take advantage of it, but I don't know if it'll be played at the absolute highest tiers, because it just feels so watered down compared to where it needs to be that punishing threat like Rowana or like Blood Moon Haste. And that's where, again, I really don't like it. I need to see barrier multipliers on this character. The character is going to live or die based on these multipliers, because again, the conditions that we've gotten, it only being 2 turns, is a hamper. The fact that most of the characters you'd want to trigger this into, they can either blow through a barrier if it's as small as it is in the video, or they can just sidestep it entirely. Yeah, this thing literally seems like it only really hoses Conquer Aurelius, and even then, I'm not really sure if that's the case. Very good skill. I just wish it was better, because traditionally when you get a silver bullet hero in Epic 7, it is backbreaking for your opponent to see it. Like Lionheart Ceremia is backbreaking to play against if you have a counter character or an extra attack or like dual attack based character. That is like a death sentence if you don't deal with it. Rowana is a death sentence if you have characters like Seaside Blown on your team. If you're playing Arbiter Villager and you see Blood Moon Haste, it is literally a death sentence to your entire team if he is alive. So the fact that Moon Bunny Dominiel isn't of that same caliber is pretty much why I'm not super enthusiastic about her overall. Sorry to harp so heavily on this in the skill 2 and spend so much time on it, but it is the main focal point, I think, of the character, is this actual move. Moving on to her S3, it is Divination, and no, it does not cost 2 and a blue to draw 2 cards. Instead, you acquire 2 souls when you use it, and it has a 3 to 4 turn cooldown depending on Malagora. It is a non-attack skill, which increases the attack of all allies for 2 turns and grants them 15% combat readiness, and gives Dominiel herself a skill nullifier 1 time. Pretty standard, honestly, for a Soul Weaver S3. You expect your Kizuna Eyes, your DNs, to actually have just like an attack buffing skill in their actual kit. This seems like really lackluster or like watered down, or like you were expecting probably something flashier than this, but that's honestly all I want out of my support characters. I just want my support to give me, you know, the best buff in the game, which is attack buff, and then some added bonus. So like in the case of Amelia, it's a cleanse or a CR push. In the case of Dominiel, it's a team-wide CR push, and then she provides herself a little bit of protection. Sure. Again, not flashy, nothing really amazing, but honestly, this is all you really need out of your Soul Weaver in order for them to be viable, so I'm perfectly fine with Divination as it is. So now let's talk about Moon Bunny Dominiel's final skill, which is her basic attack, Moonlight Wave. Attacks the enemy with an ethereal Moonlight Wave and has a 50 to 60% chance, depending on Malagora, to put them to sleep for 1 turn. This skill does not trigger a dual attack, and you can soul burn it for 10 souls to increase the effect chance to 100%. I think this is a fantastic S1. This is literally Sage Ball and Cezanne's S1. Same sleep chance, and it's on a relatively fast Soul Weaver. If you've ever played against Sage Ball and Cezanne, you know how nightmarish it can be when they just S1 and sleep block one of your characters, and there's nothing you can really do about it. I think that Moonlight Dominiel here, or Moon Bunny Dominiel, is very much in that same camp as Sage Ball and Cezanne, where you can kind of just zip around the battlefield and kind of sleep lock specific key characters on their team, especially if they're slower characters, like, say, your Apocalypse Robbies, for example. Apocalypse Robbie is commonly played on Proof of Valor nowadays. I still play mine on Crimson Sea because I don't want to have to deal with stuff like this, but if they're a Proof Apocalypse Robbie and you have a faster Dominiel, it is possible to actually just sleep lock the Robbie and take her out of the fight entirely until you have a 4v1 advantage, whether that's through soul burning or just getting lucky with the S1. Really, really good S1. And again, just like with the S3, I don't really think I can ask for more from my Soul Weaver than this. Like, if my Soul Weaver is not going to heal on the S1, then I want it to be something that has some kind of impact as far as utility, or something that's really going to help my team, because you're not there for damage, so it's got to do something else. So for her only damage skill, for it to be a replica of one of the most annoying S1s in the game, is really, really good in my opinion. So yeah, S1, very good. S3, good. It could obviously be better, but again, I don't really think I need more from my Soul Weaver than just that. And then the S2, I think we just have to wait and see the multipliers and see it in action, because I'm not 100% sold on it. And I think that they just put too many restrictions on it because they were afraid of making another like Angel of Light Angelica, where it's like really backbreaking. I would rather that they had your Rowana style character, your Blood Moon Haste style character be absolutely backbreaking, like I was saying before. I would much rather have that. So yeah, again, I think they played it a little too safe with that skill, but overall, I think that Moon Bunny Dominiel is a very good character. I probably would play her on the similar styles of sets that you see Sage Ball and Cezanne usually played on, so Speed Hit or Speed Resist. Speed Resist being probably the most ideal one, the one you will see most often. I could even see Speed Health being an option. If you're feeling particularly cheeky and you are a Banshee gamer, Counter Set is also obviously a very good option because you can counter and sleep people for them trying to focus your Dominiel. So that is something you could do. Again, Speed Resist probably going to end up being the base one. If you are looking for artifact options, I think Bastion of Hope might be okay for the Resist set, although I don't really know why you would give Bastion to this opposed to a dedicated cleanser, like say your Destinas or even like your Amelias, for example. Obviously, Bastion is also very good on some DPSs like Arya, for example. So I don't think I would personally put that one on there, but if you wanted to have a high resist one to guarantee that she could at least put a barrier on herself or something, and it kind of lends itself to the ER passive, sure. But to me, it doesn't feel super worth it. The one they use in the actual video is Doctor's Bag, so that way her S3 has some kind of cleansing, which is, I guess, all right, not super, super great. There are so many good Soul Weaver options that are playable that could be very, very good. For example, you have Sacred Tree Branch, which is actually Sharoon's one. That gives you the increased effectiveness for the sleep chance. And then if you use the basic skill on the character, you're going to get a combat readiness push. Lends itself to that counter build that we were just talking about with this character. You can use something like Magaraha's Tome to kind of get her to cycle a little bit faster if you use the S3. There's even something like Flawless Garments to give you more ER on the character as well as more effectiveness. Celestine could be good for a character that is, again, on a counter set build. And then obviously Guardian Ice Crystals and your Water's Origins are obviously going to be very good for keeping the team alive as well. So yeah, a lot of really good options on the character overall. I think she's good, not great, like probably like a 7 out of 10 character. It really depends on, again, how the performance of the S2 is. If it's not really that impactful, you might see her as like somebody with like niche Guild War applications, or like low level play for players that don't really have a deep box or a deep roster. I think that's like the floor for the character. If, you know, she has a massive barrier multiplier akin to your Blood Moon Haste when it's max mullet, then sure, she might actually be a really powerful meta counter pick. So those are my thoughts on Moon Bunny Dominiel. Hopefully this kind of helped you out whether or not you'd want to pull for her. I personally would recommend skipping the first banner that she's on unless you really need the rerun character that she's going to be coming with, because obviously Moonlight Pobble is coming up as well as the episode 4 boss later on in the fall. So if you want either of those Moonlight 5-star heroes and you already own, especially if you already own, whatever is going to be the rerun banner that this Dominiel is going to be featured with, I highly recommend you skip it and just wait and see if you actually pull her in any of your Galaxy summons. If you're a veteran player, start saving your Galaxy bookmarks, your gold transmit stones now, and just pray that you pull her in some random summon one way or another. That's going to be it for the video. As always, if I missed anything, let me know down in the comments below. I was super thankful that many of you pointed out that I missed something in the Charlotte video. I am so nervous. Hopefully I did not miss anything in this one. But yeah, as always, let me know down in the comments below and enjoy the rest of your day. And I'll catch you all on the next one. Later now.